Ooh, there we are. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Is the audio finally coming through? There we are. There we are. The audio's finally coming on in. There we are. Thank you, Tevin. Thank you, Midnight Afton. Great to see you guys here. So, let's finally get going with this right here. So, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And well, so I was trying to say earlier, and I then realized that the audio wasn't coming through because I hadn't yet done things the way I was supposed to here on Streamyard. Yeah, this is something entirely new for me right here. In the past, we have tried doing these live streams before, but for various reasons, it hasn't really played out the way that we wished. There's always something that's going wrong, usually with the sound, usually with the microphone, and usually also with my internet. I am usually the problem child right here. So I am attempting to do right here a live stream using StreamYard, seeing if it works. For you guys who have already clocked in right here, I would love to get your feedback as far as the presentation of this live stream goes and everything like that. And then I can bring your feedback to the rest of the harem, and we will figure out what could work out best for us. We might be able to do this in the future because doing live streams is a lot of fun. At least I've enjoyed it when we've done it in the past, despite all of the issues that we've had. And it's a great way of just reaching out, having that quick interaction with the people who've subscribed to us. Hey, Ryan, thank you for joining us here on the chat. And yeah, getting that feedback, having an interaction, I think is just really, really good. And then you get a chance to chat with us for a little bit. That interaction, I feel, is really good for creators, especially for authors, because whenever I've had people in the comments ask me, hey, what do I do about being an author? I've got this kind of a problem. I've got this kind of a question. It's absolutely great to be able to answer those questions. It's even better to be able to do that in real time, to have those kinds of conversations in real time. Because yeah, just you need that spark of connective creativity. In any case, that's me kind of going there on a little bit of a tangent. Yes, the Matpat cameo in the FNAF movie. I was weirdly enough the only one in the theater who laughed when Matpat showed up for his FNAF cameo. I don't know what was up with the people I went and saw it with. So I don't know, but yes, Tevin, thank you for sharing that. And I will be talking about Matpat here in a little bit, and some of what he's talked about with the Amazing Digital Circus. I'd like to give kind of my thoughts on his theory and give him some absolute credit. I was really glad that he didn't go for any low-hanging fruits. So actually, I'm going to change up the footage that you are seeing playing out right now on your screen. I've had a nice jumble of indie animation going on right here. I'm actually going to transition on over to the Marvels first and foremost. Let's get the sad stuff out of the way right now. So here we go. The Marvels. I don't know if any of you have yet seen this movie, and I'm just going to say that after walking out of the theater today, I will say this. It's a movie that if you can shut your brain off entirely, I think you will genuinely be entertained. And I think that this is a movie that will actually make some people really happy to go see it. I went and saw it with a bunch of young kids. The young kids liked certain moments of it. A lot of the adults were groaning in the movie theater because they weren't able to suspend their disbelief quite as well as their children. So I just kind of want to give some of some of my writing insights after seeing the Marvels, because what I saw playing out in the Marvels really encapsulates a huge problem that a lot of novice authors have, and that unfortunately is translated to here with big budget entertainment. These are veteran creators right here who should know better, but they've taken the easy way out when it comes to presenting characters and to presenting plot progression. So, as just a little quick review right here for the Marvels, so that way we're all kind of on a general space, even if you don't care about this movie. The basic plot of it is that Miss Marvel, Photon, and Captain Marvel are now all changing up bodies, and Photon is Monica Rambeau, one of my personal favorite of the three, and they start swapping places, not swapping bodies. They start swapping places because of magic mumbo jumbo that happens when the villain taps this magical bracelet, and boom, everyone who has light-centered powers will now swap whenever they are using their powers at the same time. There's actually a really interesting idea here, even though it's executed maybe not in the best way. But what really plagues this movie as it's playing out is what I would call conveniently stupid moments. And the reason why I say that is because throughout the movie, when you actually get the three Marvels together, they are very competent superheroes. And people can complain whether or not Miss Marvel should be a very competent superhero because she's so young and she's only beginning to get used to her powers. And in many ways, Monica Rambeau is also very new to her powers. So, I mean, people can argue about whether or not they should be as well versed in their powers as they are within the movie. But that aside, they work really well together. They are a powerhouse when they come together, and they have a lot of information, a lot of insights, a lot of knowledge, a lot of strengths, and they cover each other's weaknesses. So they should be able to, when they get together and figure out what's happening to them, you see glimpses of how they should be able to just steamroll their way through the movie. An hour and a half plot should actually have been wrapped up within half an hour because these characters are so competent. The plot of the movie is driven by conveniently stupid moments. Moments where, like, for instance, Miss Marvel figures out what's actually happening. But then she's like, that's a star chart. I've seen the villain's star chart. I know what she's doing. But I don't know anything about space or magic or science. How did you know it was a star chart then? Or that this was the map that the villain was using? And then when they fuse their brains together through magic mumbo jumbo and science, and they're like, haha, we will now be able to read from all of our experiences exactly what the villain is doing. This is going to be amazing. And everything is right there in front of them. And what happens? Carol Danvers is like, no, I want to think about something else, and drags them all along for something that actually wasn't even needed. It was a conveniently stupid moment on the part of Captain Marvel. And then Captain Marvel has another conveniently stupid moment where she actually already knows what the villain's after. She just forgets it for half an hour and takes everyone onto a side mission. And thus the movie is padded out by conveniently stupid moments that then allow the villain to get ahead of the heroes and do her thing. And that's why this is so dumb. Conveniently stupid moments. Feel free to rant about this kind of trope if you've seen the movie, or if you've seen this done in other stories in the chat. I like to see your guys' thoughts. But this was just incredibly aggravating to me. And I know that the writers will pass this off as, oh, they made a mistake. Oh, they were caught off guard. Well, a lot is happening. And when you write a story and when you read a story where characters might not make the smartest decisions, I think that we as the audience do need to give them some kind of grace. I mean, how many times have you or I made a really stupid choice especially in the middle of all the action. And then we're all like, you know what? I could have probably handled that a whole lot better. I think that that's something that writers can actually capture. And this is something that I've tried to do in my own stories where I do have capable characters. I like writing very OP characters. I actually do enjoy writing overpowered individuals. One of the things that makes overpowered individuals, in my opinion, a lot of fun is when they make mistakes, because they have such great power that if they make a mistake, the consequences of that mistake are vast. And I enjoy exploring where that can go. And so I think it's okay to have characters make mistakes, but they have to own up to those mistakes. They have to overcome those mistakes. They have to grow as a result of that. And you don't see much growth by the end of the Marvels. Ryan Phillips asking right there, I wonder if they dumbed these characters down as a response to the accusations that they are all Mary Sue's. I think that's actually a good bit of insight right there. That could absolutely be the case. One of the things that people try to do when they've written a character who is looking way more Mary Sue-ish than he or she probably should, is that they try to give them some sort of fault, and that fault will then get rid of the Mary Sue-ness. But that is a misconception of what a Mary Sue character is. A Mary Sue character is one around whom the plot, the world, and all the other cast of characters bend around, that no matter what happens, what is best for the Mary Sue character will happen. And even if that means that they must suffer, or they are angsty, or they are klutzy, that there will never be long-lasting repercussions for what they do. And you do see that Mary Sue-ness actually in what a lot of people are arguing is actually the best scene of the movie, which is when they first begin changing places. There's this huge fight in the Khan family household. It is entertaining until you start to think about what's actually happening. And this huge fight in the Khan's living room, the parents should rightfully be upset. They should be grounding their daughter until the end of time for the things that she's been doing. And there are no consequences for Miss Marvel, and everything is forgiven for Monica Rambeau and for Captain Marvel. And even though Mrs. Khan, bless her heart, she's a fantastic character, says, like, if she does anything to my daughter that I don't like, I will kill her. In the very next moment that there's any interaction between her and Captain Marvel, all is forgiven, all is forgotten. She's like, "Oh, you're the best tutor and guardian for my daughter that there could possibly be." So there is still that Mary Sue quality. So Ryan Phillips, thank you for that little bit of insight right there. If you find yourself as an author writing accidentally a Mary Sue, which is very possible. It's very possible to accidentally write a Mary Sue because you're just so caught up in the character, in the world, in the plot, that you don't stop to take the time to be like, wait a second, what am I actually doing right here? You've got to stop. You've got to ask questions about what kinds of weaknesses does my character have that they can overcome, or in some cases that they can't overcome. What is the growth that this character must go through? What are things that they have no control over? The world, despite our best efforts, no matter what we do in real life, will always come to slap us over the head with something that we weren't expecting and something that's completely out of our control. And one of the best ways of removing a Mary Sue level to a character is to provide those moments that don't wrap around the life of the potential Mary Sue, that put them on the back foot, things that they can't control, things that they can't stop, and allows them then to rely on other people and to rely on growing as an individual in order to overcome those obstacles, whether that be the antagonist, the end of the world, a flood coming, or the fact that they have really, really noisy neighbors who hate them. So yeah. Sorry, that was a little tangent right there for the Mary Sue-ness. My other thought, besides like conveniently stupid moments for the Marvels, is that I realized by the end of the movie that the writers had completely forgotten what they had done in previous stories, in previous chapters within the MCU. One of the big ones being, and I actually enjoyed how like one scene where the Florkins, the cats, are kind of set loose. It's the moment where the unnecessary B plot of the movie, the unnecessary B plot. Whoo boy, I'm going to get to that. But the unnecessary B plot is wrapped up in a moment that actually is really smart within the confines of the movie, except for the fact that the writers forgot that the Florkins actually digest what they suck up. They don't just have little pocket dimensions inside of these bodies of kitty cats. They actually do consume what they eat. And so putting the entire crew of a crumbling spaceship into the stomachs, into the voids of these gluttonous, monstrous kitty cats does not actually save people. That would get everyone killed unless they vomited out those people as soon as possible before they were digested. This is something that is in the first Marvel movie. So the fact that they use this right here, these kitties, to save everyone, well, it makes sense, except for the fact that everyone is being digested. And when they come out, everyone's perfectly fine and nothing bad happened to them. It is a retcon of a very important point within the first movie. So you need to understand what's going on here. There's a lot of little tiny things that are tweaked, retconned, or twisted in order to make certain moments within the movie work. And that's just kind of sad because it ruins, in retrospect, a scene that I did enjoy and what was, for me, the funniest moment when all of these Florkins, stuffed full of people, were put into an escape pod and then shot out into space, and you get a scene that I could have taken for a whole minute. Just pause the movie for a whole minute and have kitties in zero gravity bouncing off of each other. It was the cutest, funniest thing, and it only lasted for 3 seconds. But yes, ISO, coming back to the matter of Mary Sue's, thank you for your comment right there. So basically, don't make them too strong. Give them a realistic flaw that interferes and causes them to make mistakes. Absolutely. It is totally fine to have your characters make mistakes. Believable mistakes that characters make them interesting and relatable. Whether that is that the guy misunderstands the girl when she's trying to flirt with him, happens way too often. You can have some fun there. Someone misreading a contract or some sort of paperwork, or even better yet, if you're putting something like, for instance, within school, how many students do not read the directions? A student that you are writing for might not read the directions or misread the directions and do something that they're not supposed to do. Believable mistakes help make the character relatable. And that way, then you can have those moments of stupidity that are in a way earned and feel believable and don't feel like you've forced it in so that way you can artificially remove a Mary Sue elements. So yeah, there we go. And coming back to the whole thing that I said about the B plot. So there's a B plot that does not make any sense within this movie. It exists solely for comedic effect. You could remove it and it would absolutely not change the movie one bit. The B plot is that Kamala Khan's family has to be taken for their safety, for whatever reasons, by Nick Fury up to the amazing space station that Saber has built. Never mind where the heck this thing came from. This is something that should have been explained back in Secret Invasion, but nope. So they go up there, and something happens to the space station. Boom! It all starts blowing up, and they have to escape the space station, and this gives Nick Fury and the Khan family a chance to have their own heroic moments. It's funny. I get why it exists. It eats up so much time within the movie. It didn't need to be there. Again, you could have removed this, and it would have no effect whatsoever on the rest of the plot. Do not write those kinds of moments into your stories. When I was writing my book, Bleed, Steam, and Steel, that was one of my biggest concerns with writing my character, General Wesley Arthur, because he is so far removed from what is happening with the rest of the characters, with Asuka, with Zemon, with Lagertha, and everything that they're doing, that I felt the entire time, like, I kept asking my beta readers and my editor, does he fit? I need to know that he fits, because I really did enjoy writing him, but he's so far removed. And it's only towards the end of the book do you realize how important his role has been. But what he is doing has no immediate effect or consequences on any of the other characters. It is a slow burn payoff, and I wanted to make sure that it actually worked, because otherwise Wesley Arthur, as cool of a general as he is and as amazing as the final battle is that he wages, if it's just a B plot that has no effect on the rest of the story, why is it in there? So this is something that I myself have gone through, and I had to make sure that it really did connect. And thankfully, at least enough people told me that it did, that they felt that he definitely played a role in the story by the very end. They understood what was going on. So, whew, a big risk right there. Ryan Phillips, to one thing that you just wrote right here. That reminds me of a moment in a Warhammer 40k book I read. An Imperial warship was swallowed by a huge Xeno, and the crew was digested. It was just as horrific as you could imagine, because a Warhammer is horrific. I don't know enough about Warhammer to give any sort of knowledgeable insight or feedback on that. I probably should read some stuff, get myself up to date on it, especially since Henry Cavill is pushing that forward, and I'm not a friend. I wish I was a friend of Henry Cavill's. I'm a fan of Henry Cavill's, and I would love to see what he and other creative minds can do with the universe of Warhammer 40k. Useless B plots. I think it's better to just not have a B plot than to have a useless one. Exactly. So exactly. B plots are normally put into, for instance, cartoons to help pad out the timing. And sometimes those B plots do wrap in pretty well into the rest of what's actually happening within the A plot. Sometimes it can be used to add the necessary humor and break that you need from the intense A plot. Gravity Falls is a great example of that. But yeah, definitely you want to focus more on the general plot and not so much on useless subplots. Subplots should exist to tell many stories that help to build up the events and the characters of the main plot. Good cover. I think that was Tyranid Hive Ship. Man, I wish I knew more about that. I will need to do more. Whoop. Playing this little footage right here for as long as we're still talking about the Marvels. But yeah, that's pretty much that's pretty much my thoughts right there. For anyone who really wants to, I think, dive deeper into this movie, it's at least worth a watch. Again, you have to turn off your brain if you really want to enjoy it. And unfortunately for me, I'm someone who, if I'm going to get invested in a movie, my brain doesn't shut off normally during movies. I get sucked into the movie and I'm like, I want to explore everything, puzzle out everything, think about those characters, relish the experience that I'm living in. But there were so many things that were happening within the movie that I knew was retconning, tweaking, or misinterpreting things that happened within other shows and movies. Basically, all of Secret Invasion in one scene is made into a useless show. You didn't need anything of Secret Invasion. In fact, actually, Nick Fury and the Skrulls look stupid, all because of one scene where you realize the Skrulls already had a beautiful new homeworld to live on. We didn't need Secret Invasion to happen at all. Carol Danvers had already done everything that she was supposed to. So why did we go through all of this? Oh, there's so many moments like that. Anyway, Ryan Phillips, again, if you do get into Warhammer, I would recommend starting with the most highly rated book. Even if you don't have the greater context, of course, Warhammer has had many authors, and some of which weren't great. Yeah, I know. That's what happens when you have a sandbox universe. A sandbox universe can actually work really, really well um, if you have someone who's kind of at the head of it who says, okay, guys, this is kind of where I want everything to go. These are the basic rules. I'm going to hold you all to that, but otherwise, go ahead and have fun. Brandon Mole did that with his Spirit Animals series, which I really, really enjoyed. There were some books that didn't jive with me very well. I thought some of the authors did things with some of the characters that I thought was really forced. But overall, the Spirit Animals series by Brandon Mole was really engaging, and it was very interesting to have, I think it was 8 or 9 other authors get in on the action and help to elaborate and build up the world of spirit animals. So with something like Warhammer, like because I know that it's a huge extended universe. I love the idea of many different authors getting in there and having fun doing their own things. And it works best if you have someone who kind of is over all of it and just says, I am the gatekeeper of the rules and of a general timeline. Otherwise, have at it. So whenever I get into Warhammer, I will see how all of that plays out. I'm very interested. But I think that will do it right here for me and talking about the Marvels. Let's actually get to the good stuff, the fun stuff, which was talking about GlitchX. So let's change things up on over here and take us to the lovely footage from Glitch Productions and the likes. I gotta get a little bit of water right there. Wet my whistle. Okay, so GlitchX. 4+ hours of awesome. Holy cow. I have so many thoughts, and there was so much there. I'm not going to comment on every single little thing that happened because I think a lot of it really was for the fans to just have fun. I love that they had the voice acting competition. That was hilarious. And I love how every voice actor really got into character and had fun with those characters. It was clear that they understood them, that they loved them. That is the passion that is missing from Hollywood. And that's actually a passion that I would love to see, really bleed into mainstream entertainment even more. The world of voice acting, I think, really, really captures what acting should be, where you just dive into a character, you understand that character, you have fun with it, and you're able to kind of on command slip into that character and just have fun. So I was so happy to see that. A lot of laughs, a lot of great nods and recommendations to other creators who are coming onto the scene. Please in the chat, let me know what one of the lesser known projects were that you were really happy that you saw highlighted. For me, it was Far-Fetched. I actually thought that Far-Fetched was like a fever dream that I had once upon a time come across on YouTube, and I was like, was it actually? It was a thing. Oh, that was a thing. Okay. Yes. Okay. We're going to actually get this in the future. So I was happy to see that. Ryan, I go out of my way to listen to interviews and podcasts that my favorite voice actors are on exactly for that reason. It's cool to hear what they think about the characters that they play. Absolutely. And that's an aspect of storytelling that you just don't get with books. Yeah, my world of understanding when it comes to storytelling is mostly centered in books. And that's me, the author, engaging in these characters, engaging in this world, getting to understand them and their place in it. When you share your story and your characters with other people, with other artists, and they then start playing a role in bringing that all to life, they start giving their own life and interpretation to those characters. And it really is a balance between the originators from the original creator and the people that the other artists that they're working with to bring their visions together and give a whole new life to those characters. Like, for instance, Pomni. I loved hearing about the evolution of Pomni in the interviews and how she came to be. And really, for a lot of the characters in the Amazing Digital Circus, so many of them were something very different originally, but then evolved over time and through interactions to then become who they are in the pilot. Let's see here, Ramshackle. I need to check out more for Ramshackle. I absolutely do. Let's see here. In fact, I've listened to every podcast episode of Honeycast, podcast hosted by Ashley Nichols, one of the creators of Far-Fetched. Oh, that's really cool. I did not know anything about that. Thank you for sharing. So thank you for sharing both of those things, Ryan and ISO. But going then to the topic of storytelling within GlitchX, because there's so much that can be talked about. Since this is a YouTube channel about writing, I want to talk about what I learned, especially from Liam Vickers and from Gooseworks, about the processes that they went through to create their shows, Murder Drones and the Amazing Digital Circus. I thought it was very interesting to hear how many iterations and versions of their stories they played around with, that both of these shows could have been something entirely different. They could have gone in very different directions, which is interesting for me to hear because that's actually not my style. There have only been a handful of stories that I myself have worked on where they were originally something else and then evolved to then become what they were. One of those examples would be Bleed, Steam, and Steel. That was originally something entirely different, with a very different world, very different characters. Everything changed. You would not recognize what it is now to what it was originally. Where it was originally was a very depressing, disgusting version of BioShock. and now it's a high fantasy steampunk with way happier characters and individuals. So yeah. Murder Drones was definitely fast-paced and cliche at times, but I absolutely love the show so much. Yeah, Murder Drones definitely has some things that you can definitely poke some criticisms at. Its speed, its pacing is definitely something that threw people for a loop, especially when we got around to episode 3 to episode 4. It felt like there were some certain jumps in the timeline, which Liam kind of low-key gave us permission to write fan fiction for those moments. And I'm just going to state right here, thanks to that interview with Liam, I do fully intend to write a fan fiction about finding a pizza shop somewhere on that desolate planet, since that was something that they talked about. And I was just like, that's a great idea. That's a great slice of life idea for a Murder Drones side story. It's funny how much hand waving Liam does with plot points that aren't working out as compared to a fandom that hyper focuses on every detail. Absolutely, this is something where, as someone who tries to pay a lot of attention to his own world building, I was like, Liam, no, stop just hand waving things, like the amount of oil that must be consumed and stuff like that. What I learned from Liam, and I'm really interested to see what Gooseworks does, because I feel like Gooseworks is learning. I feel like both Gooseworks and Glitch Productions are learning from what works and what doesn't work with Murder Drones moving forward. And part of that is that Liam had an idea, he had a direction to go, and when things weren't working immediately, he began changing things up, like throwing out the entire script for episode 2 and for letting Thad fall by the wayside, stuff like that, as kind of a main character. Those are moments where I think the fans can definitely argue about whether those were good ideas or not. For me, that's an example of killing your darlings, where you had an idea beforehand. He might have even been wedded to it, but things like, yeah, no, this isn't working. Give it the axe. So when you do your own writing, you shouldn't be afraid to give an idea, a character, or even a plot thread the axe if it isn't working. That's something that I was happy to see reiterated by Liam. But you might want to be a little more concentrated on the finer plot points, on your world building elements. Don't just hand wave them away, because that does get annoying, and that does lend itself to making some what could be very crucial mistakes down the way. That's very hard to edit and fix if you've already gone through production and have released the episodes or chapters or books wherein you made those mistakes. I suppose there's a lot of blood on your hands for giving characters and whatnot the axe. But Ryan, yes, I do agree with you. I am very excited for Murder Drones episodes 7 and 8. I am so excited for this, and I am very happy that they're taking their time to take care of all of the editing and make sure that it is the best that it can be moving forward. And kind of on that note right there, I've seen a lot of people talk about how they're expecting 2 seasons, even. And I feel like Matpat over at Film Theory gave that train a lot of steam by saying, like, yeah, there's going to be another season. What I heard in the interview with Liam was he was choosing his words very carefully when it came to the future. I don't know if we will get a second season, which is sad to say, because I do want another season, but I don't want to put my hopes so high that they then come tumbling down at the end of episode 8. My recommendation to everyone is just buckle up for the ride, have as much fun as you can, and we're going to see what's going to happen, because some of the wording that he gave to what they were doing made me think that there is a very good chance that everything will end with episode 8. And that does kind of fit in with Liam Vickers' MO, where he does shorter stories. He's never really completed a long form story as far as I know. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he came in, pitched a phenomenal 1 season show, and now that they're seeing so much great success from it, I can see that Glitch Productions is like, hey, Liam, we would really love for you to continue on with Murder Drones, because it is a cash cow for us, and it's a huge universe that you've built. We'd love it if you did more. And I feel like part of the reason why they're also taking so much time to make episodes 7 and 8 is not just because resources and time were given to the amazing Digital Circus, but I think that they're also trying to figure out if they will do a second season, and if so, how do you set that up? And if you don't do a second season, how can you make sure that the first season ends on such a high note that people will still love what you've gotten? So, quick right here, I'm just taking a quick drink of water and reading your guys' comments here in the chat. To Hafiz, well, hi there, welcome. Glad that you could finally make it here onto our live stream. And ISO Inferno's reasoning for season 2 was that Liam said that episode 7 and 8 are the season finale, not the series finale. And yeah, I do understand that. My one reasoning for that, for saying that, be careful that this might actually be the series finale and not just a season finale, is that even 1 season shows are still classified as season 1, and that their season finale, which is ultimately the series finale, is also even then listed as the season finale. I don't know why that is officially done that way, other than that maybe they're trying to make people think that this isn't really the end, which, if you know that that's indeed the last chapter, that in and of itself is a bit of a spoiler, because there's nothing else after this. But if you don't know if you don't know that that's the case, you can still go up to the end of a book, to the last episode of the show, to the last 5 minutes of a movie, and believe that there is still more yet to come. So, and that was actually kind of my experience, a little bit in reverse, when I first watched The Fellowship of the Ring. I was in the movie theater, I was watching it, I was so caught up. Like, that movie felt like 30 minutes to me as a kid, because I was so engrossed in it. I did not realize that 2.5 hours had just passed. And then you get to the end, and I was like, what's going to happen next? And then Frodo and Sam just walk off to Emyn Muil. And I was like, that's the end? That's the end? What do you mean that's the end of this? Well, how do they beat the bad guy? What's going to happen to Aragorn or Merry and Pippin? No, this can't be the end. And the adults I was with were like, hey, calm down, buddy. This is just the first movie of 3. And I was like, oh... Had I known that, I would have reacted differently. Yes, the marketing tactics have fooled me. Yes, that's happened. That's absolutely happened to me before as well. I have been burned by shows and stories that I thought would go on longer, ended up not being the case. So, yeah, once again, I absolutely hope and pray that we do get more seasons of Murder Drones, but if we don't, I will understand why that's the case, and I will also understand the misdirect behind it. Ryan Phillips, do you think V will come back sometime in the last 2 episodes? After seeing the trailer, I'm not so sure. I still think that V has a chance of coming back. My reasoning for that is because we've been given 3 different ways in which V can return, whether it be that there's a clone of her running around, which would probably definitely play more into a season 2 scenario if we get a second season. Her core, if it's not destroyed by the Sentinels, can move around and can bring V essentially back to life. The third option is, and I say this because this is a Chekhov's gun situation, why send Jay away? One of the most competent warriors and someone who is fanatically devoted to Tessa. That is an interesting little hanging thread right there. In many ways, Jay is the Chekhov's gun. It is something that we know she is out there. She is alive. She can be helpful. We've seen just how good of a warrior she is. She can come in and do something that could save V right at the last moment, and it could be her coming on in to show that fanatical devotion again to Tessa and save Tessa. So 3 different ways in which V can return. Because you have 3 different ways in which she can return, I can't in good conscience hang my hat on her being permanently dead. If she is permanently dead, then that's the case. But there are 3 ways to bring her back, and that's something to be cognizant of going forward. There's still Eldritch V. I don't see why it wouldn't happen to Jay and not V. Absolutely, ISO. I can absolutely see an Eldritch V situation. I would love it, just as I said in one of my theory videos. I would love to see an Eldritch Abomination form of V, where she uses the bodies of the Sentinels, where she has incorporated that material to create a new body for herself. I would absolutely love that. And Jay character development, Jay screen time, yes, please. I would actually love to see more of Jay, because episode 5, Home, I thought did wonders for Jay's character by showing who she was before all of this insanity went down, and seeing that, how she's a punk. She's awful to end. But at the same time, you do have to credit her and love her for the fact that she is so loyal to Tessa, and not even in an obsessive yandere way, but more as in that she does genuinely love Tessa on some level. And that loyalty is something that would be great to see challenged or expounded upon. And it's great to also see that her wonky way of interpreting the world and everything around her as a corporation. I like that that was something that had already been pre-programmed, pre-developed within her. And I would love to see how that comes on out and is challenged and explored further. Imagine if in an episode, J and N team up to beat up Sin. That would be awesome. Not going to lie. Ruben Silva, I do agree with you. I would love to see N and J put aside their differences and fight against Sin or against some sort of abomination that Sin creates. That would be great. That would actually be a really neat reversal, again, of what we saw in episode 5, where we see them fighting against Eldritch V, or the abomination version of V after she's been possessed by Absolute Solver. And in that particular fight, Jay and Tessa are the ones who have to step in to save N. N is a character who really needs to have his chance to step up and show that he can be the hero. He's been the heart to everything that's been happening, and it's important to have that heart character. But given how Uzi is now so damaged, and how we know that Absolute Solver is there possessing her, and we've seen in the trailer how there's that reaction where with her remaining hand she starts crushing his, Uzi is basically out of commission right here. This, I believe, will be N's chance to shine and show that he can be the hero, which is something that N has definitely needed. Because much of his heroism has been in conjunction with Uzi. And we know that Uzi, without N, can be a heroic character. So this is a chance for N to step up. It's a great opportunity for character development, for character growth, for him, potentially for Jay. I especially want to see what happens with Tessa. There's so much that could happen. And given what Liam dropped in his interview, I would actually not be surprised if we meet other humans at the bottom of the shaft, considering that he said, and I didn't realize that this was the case, that humans on Copper 9 had already realized that the murder drones were coming for them and started creating the Sentinels specifically to kill the murder drones. So there's potentially still humans left somewhere on Copper 9, and that could actually be something that could be part of the reason why Tessa is not sharing everything with the drones, since the drones know that they have replaced the humans. What if it's now this is a reversal and the humans might be making a comeback to replace them? There's a whole lot that can be done right here. He's been the heart. He's also, unfortunately, the butt. Yeah, and sometimes the butt of the joke. If Ryan Phillips, if I had to wager a guess based on the new trailer, I think it may come down to a three-way battle between N and Uzi versus Tessa and Jay versus Eldritch V under the control of Absolute Solver. That would be epic. That would be absolutely epic right there. And yes, Tessa has insisted that Uzi has to be destroyed in order to save the universe. So high stakes right there. And we know that N does not want to get rid of Uzi. He hopes to find a solution to the situation that they are in. And also what was interesting in the trailer was how many times again it went back to him actually pleading for V, which is another reason why I think this might actually be that V could show up again. Why bring up her name again and again and again, at least 3 times within the trailer, unless you're going to cash in on that in some kind of way. So I'm interested in seeing what happens there. And I also think that they are releasing episode 7 and 8 together, because it's definitely going to be a story that's best told right there. I also think that they don't want to leave people hanging and theorizing and guessing ahead of time how everything will end based on the reveals for episode 7. So yeah, we'll just see. Ruben's yes, that would be a very messy, chaotic fight. It would be fantastic to watch that three-way battle. We'll just have to see what happens. And I think that all kinds of horrors all kinds of new Eldritch Abomination horrors are awaiting us down there at the very bottom. And since just about every episode of Murder Drones has been a homage to either a specific subgenre of horror or to a specific horror franchise, I think it would be interesting really to speculate on what the next subgenre is going to be. If it's going to be very purely Lovecraftian, and so then we're like, okay, then whatever comes next is pure Lovecraftian horror, or if it's going to be like, I don't even know. I really hope that we don't do anything like cave horror stories, because those are just kind of boring and weird, in my opinion. We'll just have to see. TK1138. That's a great reference right there. TK1138. Great to have you here, even if you did come in a little bit late. That's awesome. I won't rule out that was just an emphasis on how much N was affected by V's death, but it's almost definitely some hints about the next two episodes. Yeah. V's death, whether permanent or not, is going to have an absolute effect on N. And I'm ready to see that. If she does come back and we get to see N completely off his rocker, completely on the back foot because of the death of someone they absolutely cared about, that is good. People say that the consequences of a character death are removed if you bring them back. And I don't agree with that, so long as you show how a character changes in the light of someone that they cared about dying. And so they can come to terms with it, they can move on. But then if that person comes back, how does that change the person who's gone through that grief? What does that mean for them? There's a lot of fun that you can have with bringing characters back from death. I'm just saying. Ruben Silva, I noticed in the trailer, Uzi says with Sin's voice, "Thanks for giving me the planet, friggin' idiot." Yes. I loved hearing that. And maybe there will indeed be an epic battle at the end. If it's in the case, let's pray and wins. Absolutely. Come on, you good precious boy. Please pull out the win. So yeah. Are you sure that's Uzi? Who knows? Who knows if that's really Uzi, TK1138? We do know that that Absolute Solver has infected Uzi as of by the end of episode 6, and that Absolute Solver is pulling all kinds of interesting strings. This is going to be very, very interesting here, because effectively we have a god who's manipulating all different kinds of characters and elements within the plot to make sure that it wins, whatever that winning looks like. Whether that be that it's just seeking to destroy the planet entirely and it wasn't able to do that beforehand. If it could be that the sacrifice of the planet is all part of a greater ritual to either summon the true entity, the singularity, or if it's for something else. Who knows? There's a whole lot that can be speculated on, and I'm happy to see all different kinds of theories that people have. It was so well done that actually made me panic. Yeah, I was actually out for a walk, listening to the interview, and when we got to that part, I was just like, I suddenly had like a spring to myself. I'm like, like what is going on here? Let's see here. I'm Omega. If we are allowed to do fan fiction, then I have several ideas. One is based off of a guy who didn't like musicals, where N and Uzi are trapped in a musical simulation. That's awesome. I like that idea. Go and write that. That sounds fun. Also, we kind of forget Doll. Do you think she can lose control? Because from episode 2 to 3, her eyes went from orange to deep red. She doesn't seem to lose much control. Could be interesting. Yeah, Doll. Oh my gosh. When I did my last theory video for Murder Drones, the people were like, well, what do you think about Doll? What do you think about Doll? I don't know. Doll is such an interesting free agent. Like, I was not expecting the promenade at all. When you see that she's murdering all of these people, so that way she can manipulate events, so that way she can kill V, and then when that whole plot goes to pot for her, she flees, but then we then realize that she's been doing research and she's been trying to figure out what exactly happened to her and to her parents and to figure out a way to stop it. She's someone who uses the powers of Absolute Solver, but her visor, her screen hasn't changed to poisonous yellow. So there is a change that's kind of come over her because of or the fact that she's used Absolute Solver, but it's something different. And if there's anything that I would guess that that doll specifically was given something by the humans. There's a program within her that was meant to fight against Absolute Solver, maybe to contain it and destroy it. But I don't really know. That would be my happy ending guess. My not so happy ending guess is that Absolute Solver has been manipulating Doll in a different way than Uzi and hasn't bothered taking full possession of Doll, making Doll think that she's actually doing this of her own free will and that she is the hero of her own story and that what she's doing is right and will save everyone, only for it to end up being part of Absolute Solver's plan to destroy everything. Wasn't Doll born after the core collapse? Yes, she was born after the core collapse. One of the things that Liam gave to us in terms of world building that's important is that he said that in order to create the next generation of drones, they take programming from the parents and they put that into the new body of the baby drone, and that by combining the programming and everything, a new entity is created, and then that entity develops its identity and its skills and personality based on how it grows up, how it deals with the environment. That was, I think, a huge bombshell that he dropped. I don't know if he's talked about that before, but to me that was something new, to learn that the drones develop by interacting with the world much like humans do. They're mirroring humans, and so even though you have the coding of the parents stuffed into one drone to create something new, that drone develops its own unique identity and personality based on its experiences. So that was, for me, a huge reveal, and I was really glad that Liam dropped that right there. Catching him right here. I was driving home when GlitchX stream was going on, so I could only listen instead of watch. Just hearing the pounding music from episode 6 in particular, I was so hyped. AJ Desperanto is brilliant. Yes, AJ is a great composer, and they were singing his praises last night. Ruben Silva, there was a Brazilian YouTuber I watched earlier that had a similar theory for Doll, basically as an antivirus against sin. So it is an interesting theory. We'll have to see if it plays out. I really have no other basis to go off of on that other than that the Cabin Fever program was absolutely the humans on Copper 9 messing around with Absolute Solver, either trying to figure out how to control it or destroy it. And that the drones that were a part of that program were definitely the experiments for it. So I think that since Yeva was weaker than Nori, Sin is overall uninterested in her, and the same applies for Doll and Uzi. Potentially. We'll have to see. Hafiz, right now I'm doing manga, storyboard, and laundry. Going to love multitasking. Yes, multitasking for the win. That is normally how I go throughout my day. And that's how I try to keep on top of all the entertainment news and what is happening. And as a consumer, I used to teach history in high school. I still love history, and so I'm constantly listening to history videos as I do laundry, as I work on my books and stuff like that. So yes, multitasking for the win. I'm not so sure how storyboarding and laundry can be done at the same time, but best of luck to you, Hafiz. Let me take another drink of water. All right. So yeah, so much to say about murder drones. I do want to shift gears on over to the amazing Digital Circus before my voice gives out, because that could happen. We'll see. So yeah, the amazing Digital Circus. Let me just say this right off the bat: for anyone who is trying to get their own stories or their own animation or their own music off the ground. Gooseworks is an example that I think we can take great heart from. Gooseworks has been doing animations and music for years and has built up a following over the years in order to get to this point. And while Gooseworks has been successful, it's very clear from the interview with her that she has now been propelled to a whole new stratosphere of success that can really change, that is changing her life, the kind of success that most creatives dream that they can experience. And it was funny listening to how she's dealing with that and how it's really difficult because she's not accustomed to it. And if you're willing, like Gooseworks and like Liam Vickers, to put in the time, to just continue plugging away, don't give up on your hobbies, don't give up on your dreams, continue to improve your skills, even if none of us becomes as famous or as rich as Liam, Gooseworks, and the people at Glitch Productions. I think that there is that moment where we will have our own time in the sun, our own time of success. You just have to keep on working at it. And that's something that I've discovered a lot for myself, is that over the years, as I've just continued to dedicate myself to this now for 8 years, it took a while to get to the point where I do have multiple books I can share with people, where even though it's a small following here on YouTube, I'm having fun. And that following is actually there. 2 years ago, all of that stuff would have been unbelievable to me. It would have just been a dream. So just keep plugging away, keep working at it. Let's see here, coming around to some of the things you guys have written down right now. So from Rubens, I'm watching the live in the phone. Texting Playinfo H014 and the PC and drawing a Europe map because yes, you go, Rubens. You watched The Amazing Digital Circus yesterday and kind of like Kinger, he was just crazy and definitely mentally stable. Kinger is mentally stable in a really weird way. If you've been around enough insane people, there are those stably insane people, and Kinger is the stably insane individual. He is guaranteed going to come in clutch later on. So a question from I'm Omega. How do drones grow up then? Do their programmings make them grow, or do they get inserted into empty drone bodies? From what Liam has described, just quickly reversing a little bit right there to Mer drones, from what Liam has described, the programming goes into the body and the baby drone, begins learning, growing, and developing. And as that maturity comes along, the parents and then later on the drone itself just gets the physical upgrades to then become the kind of drones that we see most of the characters being. And that's actually one of the things that's kind of funny for Uzi, is that Uzi could absolutely get the upgrades to be bigger like all the other drones, but for whatever reason, Khan and Nori never upgraded her. And so you have a more developed teenage brain in the body of a more younger adolescent drone, and that's kind of the joke right there. But all drones are supposed to develop and mature based on their interactions with each other, potentially with humans, and with the world around them. They learn and they grow from confronting different events, mistakes, accidents, choices, just like we do as individuals. They just don't organically grow like we do. We have so much less to go on. Let's hear from Ryan Phillips. We have so much less to go on since we only have the pilot of the Digital Circus. But I think when Goose mentioned that the show was about a bunch of jerks, that was our biggest hint about the plot. Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have a whole lot to go on here with the Digital Circus. And they were very tight-lipped on what they were going to do, in large part because they haven't yet hammered out the details for the contract. And I think that's really interesting. How Glitch Productions has actually decided to not put all of their eggs into any one creative basket. They gave Murder Drones a chance with the pilot. The pilot did fairly well, got millions of views. And so they're like, okay, then we'll write up a contract with you, Liam, and we're going to then get this project off the ground. The Amazing Digital Circus is flooring them. If you paid attention to how they talked about it, how they talked about hammering out the contract, and they said we don't have anything to tell you right now, they were nervous. And that's not because I think because the producers and Gooseworks are having any sort of disagreements, but rather this is phenomenal. Within a month, the Amazing Digital Circus has almost rivaled Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss's pilot episodes for millions of views, and very likely it will surpass both of them. If that happens, the Amazing Digital Circus, I believe, will be the most watched indie production project on YouTube. I might be wrong about that, but I believe that's the case. That is massive. I don't know about I don't know what kind of revenue Glitch Productions takes in from YouTube. But when you are dealing with millions of views, they are at least raking in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And with nearly 90 million views, and let's say those views all got at least like average out to about 10 minutes right there. Yeah, they just raked in over $1 million off of this one project. That easily covers the cost of production. Let's say that they decided to throw a movie's worth of a budget at the Amazing Digital Circus, which I don't think they did. I don't think that they threw $10 million at producing it. But you can easily put about $200,000 to $500,000 in investment into something like the Amazing Digital Circus. They have easily made that up and have made a massive profit on whatever their investments are. So what does that then mean? Holy cow, we have a cash cow, unlike any other on the internet right now on our hands. What is the contract that we're going to write up? This then depends on Gooseworks. Gooseworks, how long is your story, girl? Are we talking like one season? And if one season, how many episodes? Or are we talking multiple seasons? Multiple seasons, how many episodes to tell your story? And Gooseworks let it slip that while she has an idea for the story, she actually hasn't plotted out the whole thing. She might know her ending, and that's awesome, but she doesn't have the full story down just yet. As a result, the contract cannot be written up until she can deliver a complete pitch with the full story that she intends to tell to Glitch Productions. They accept it, they write it out, and like they said, there will probably be no word about this until springtime. Gooseworks needs to calm down from the amazing success. She needs to rest, and then she needs to get to work putting everything together. So I know it's a little bit of a tangent right there. That's business. But that's something that we as fans need to understand in the making of these shows, and that it's not just about creating fun stories at this point anymore. There is a business aspect to it, and because Glitch Productions has actually been handling themselves incredibly professionally. No good professional just simply hands you the money and resources and manpower and says, do something for us. They want to see a proposal. They want to see timelines. They want to know the story in full as best as you can give it to them. They want a budget. And then based off of all of that, they will then form an overall budget and an agreement through the contract for how much they will pay Gooseworks, pay their people, how many people do they need to hire to make this work, and then how much, of course, how much money will then Glitch get as the profits, as the compensation for facilitating the creation of the story. So, yes, Reinfeld said right there, I can't imagine the pressure right there. Yeah, on Gooseworks, on Liam, on Glitch. There's a lot of pressure on this right here because these are such successful shows. They are cash cows, and they need to be respected. They need to be respected as a source of revenue for the company and for the creators, but they also need to be respected as individual stories. and they need to be respected as something that fans love and are interacting with. And that's something that all needs to be understood in order to grade the best contract. I'm now going into a realm that I myself don't have much expertise in, because if you don't already know the story, I've only ever once had actually a publisher write up a contract for me, and I never actually saw that contract through. I pulled out of that contract a year later because of various issues behind the scenes with the publication of my book, and especially actually with its editing. The editing was not happening the way it was supposed to, so I pulled on out. So I've actually never been as far as Liam and Gooseworks have gone with seeing a contract through to signing it and then delivering on it. So I can't quite comment on what that all looks like. There's some things that people have written right here. No doubt Kinger will be the savior in the time that really matters. Absolutely. Ruben Silva, Kinger is like Braden from Murder Drones, by far the most powerful being in the galaxy. Yeah, Braden went around with fire coming out of his head for months and did not die. It's so sad that he had to cross paths with Absolute Solver, because he could have been the emperor of the drones. So it really sparks my motivation to just sit down and learn to draw so that I can be an animator someday. Yeah, more power to you. Animation is amazing, and I'm really glad that I'm friends with some people who have been getting into animation and learning from them and learning what that process is like. It gives me so much respect for the people who do that craft. Gotta love the fact that the ending for the pilot for the Amazing Digital Circus became a meme of basically students every Sunday. Absolutely. And teachers too. Teachers don't want to go back to work on Monday. It's so real. Let's see here. It seems like Goose asked for Michael Kovac to join her interview to cover her nerves and awkwardness. Lovely little comfort right there, Kovacs, LOL. Yes, Michael Kovac is amazing. I knew about him, and I knew a little bit about his career before really diving into the Amazing Digital Circus and of course GlitchX. Getting to see so much of him, and I mean, the persona that you show to people on the internet and in public can be radically different from who you are behind the scenes. I try to be as genuine and honest as I can be, but there's definitely things I keep personal. But I loved just seeing how much positivity Michael brought to the whole thing, how much fun he brought. He elevated things. He was a great person to help Goose out with the interview, and he really brought his A game. He really lifted up the other voice actors as well. If I ever had the chance to work with him in any sort of capacity, I would take it. I would take it immediately, because I would love to have that experience, to work with the guy. He's professional, he's friendly, he's funny, and he's dedicated to his craft in the most respectful way from everything that I've seen. So big kudos to Michael Kovac. I think he was the real winner of GlitchX. I mean, as far as anyone could say we're winners, everyone was a winner for GlitchX airing. Rubens, true teachers are probably going insane dealing with my class. What, they threw butter at the board? Oh no. Okay, little side thing there as a teacher. So I enjoyed bringing in food for my students. I would bring in pizzas if they earned pizza. There were a couple of times that I did for like we would be watching a documentary, since I taught history. I would show documentaries and I'd be like, okay guys, you've earned popcorn. If anyone spills this, you are picking up every single kernel by hand. Now, you're not getting a broom and dustpan. I had a broom and dustpan, but like, you're picking it up by hand, because you do not disrespect food in my classroom. Oh no, you don't. And I also had a bunch of boys that would come on in and they'd like guzzle energy drinks and try to belch. And what I do is I'd then like chug water and beat them in a belch. I'm like, guys, that's the mark right there. you have to belch louder than me. If you belch in my class and you don't belch louder than I do, you don't get to burp in my class. And so there were actually I had almost no one belching in my class ever because they couldn't beat me. And that was the thing. I'm like, and they would know it too, because it's like, guys can't beat Mr. Jensen. If a guy could beat Mr. Jensen in a belching contest, that was respect, and it also usually hurt them. So they wouldn't do it again. But you respected food in my class. No dropping the food, no throwing the food. One kid threw a cake in my classroom once, and that was it. Those kids never got anything again, and it ticked off all of his fellow classmates. I actually think he got expelled the next year, if I remember that correctly. Throwing food, it leads to expulsion. Stories I can tell. Let's see here. But coming back to it. Yeah, as was said earlier, there's not a whole lot that we know about the Amazing Digital Circus. There's not a whole lot we can comment on with the story other than our speculations and whatnot. However, I do want to come back again to what Gooseworks talked about with her creative process and just how characters changed and everything. It seems like Jax is the one character who really kind of stayed the same in her mind throughout the whole creative process. Pomni was once a frog. I was like, whoa, that's very different. And how Pomni was meant to be a self-insert for the audience, and she still kind of acts that way, but then actually giving her own personality, which is important. It is okay to write self-insert characters, or characters that are meant to be a self-insert for the audience, a vessel through which they can view the rest of the story. But that character must absolutely have a personality of their own. Otherwise it's not worth it. They then just come off as bland, and you're like, why are they taking up space in this story? But if you are writing your own characters, it's absolutely okay for your characters to change from what they were originally at their inception to what they become as an end product. Two of my favorite side characters to write in all of my books are Tori and Nessa from The Legend of the Ten Lords, for my flagship series. And they were not originally a part of my thinking process at all. I realized while I was writing the first book that my main character, Ben, needed someone to play off of. And I was just like, well, who can I introduce? I'm like, okay, what if we introduced a little sister type? That could be interesting, since he's a kid from a one child household. What would it be like if he now suddenly has a sibling relationship? And now let's introduce another character who's a girl who's way more spunky, self-assertive, who's very sure of herself, something that he, in the situation that he's at right now in the first book, is not. So he's got two people from different situations to play off of. Let's have some fun. I wrote it. It was a good thing. And then I realized I love these girls so much. I need to do more stuff with them. They were never a part of the original story. And so I had to give them a greater role, and they transformed the entire series for me, Nessa and Tori. And so it's totally fine if that happens. Those characters usually end up enriching your creative process a whole lot more. If a character needs to change, needs to evolve in order to become a better individual or a more contributing individual within the plot, then do it. If you need to change a character to make them more interesting, do it. Don't just put in some rando character and try to make them last for as long as possible without putting in the effort. If you do that, you might as well give them the axe. Don't have useless characters within your stories. You can have background characters, sure, but they're meant to be in the background. They're only meant to be there for one or two scenes, and then you never see them or hear of them again. But if you have a character who's constantly within a story, they need to be engaging. They need to be fleshed out. They need to contribute. If they can't do that, give them the axe and revise your story as needed. Catching on up right here with some of the comments. Damn, teachers used to do this when I was studying on school, ironically called the Pentagon. because no one dared to break rules. But now teachers gave up as the projector of 1A blew up. Oh boy. You know what? I'll just say this. I terrified my students for a month when the internet for the entire school went down. So everyone had to go old school. No projectors, no computers, nada. And so I did everything on the board, and I'm like, you guys are going to be taking notes. And they're like, Mr. Jensen, my hand hurts. And I'm like, what do you think my hand feels like? I'm the one who's doing most of the work up here on the board. Wasting food should be a crime. Absolutely. I mean, what else would you do with someone called Jax? Oh, I love Jax. Frog Pomni. Frog Pomni, my head looks cursed. Sometimes the book quite literally writes itself. It just does its own thing, and you get to enjoy it for the first time as you write it. Absolutely. That was kind of my experience with writing Bleed Steam and Steel. That was a book that I never intended to write, with characters I never intended to create. It came about as a what if. I was like, what if I introduced the backstory to a villain this one way? Because as I was writing one of the books that I just released this year, The Monarch Mercenaries, there was a character who I intended to have as a villain, who would only show up for like 2 chapters in the book. And I really enjoyed this villain. And so I was all like, well, I want to share more about him, but there's no reason to do an info dump on who he is or to explore him within the Monarch Mercenaries, because he's not a main villain. He's just a little side villain. So I started asking myself, what ifs? Well, what if I just wrote a short story? That short story became a novella, and that novella then became 4 novellas, and those 4 novellas became a book. With characters in a world that I never expected to really delve that much into. And it was just so much fun. And as a result of that, even now when I pick up the book and read it, it's like reading it for the first time each time. It's magic. Let's see here. Hafiz, good tips on writing. I think I'll use it for my own manga. Absolutely. If there's anything that I say that's useful, use it. And if you don't think it's useful, you're free not to use it. That's absolutely fine. Episode 8 of Murder Drones, the leak and turns into a Super Saiyan and throws Sin into space. I would love to see that. I would love to see Angelic N really like show up and like do something nuts or insane, something cosmic. I don't know if any of you purchased the stained glass window for V after episode 6. I got it. It is beautiful. It's awesome. I should take a picture of it and load it up. But I kept the box, and on the box you have the silhouettes for Eldritch Uzi and Angelic N. Now, there's no details to those images. They're just silhouettes. But what that tells me is that we're going to get the Eldritch Uzi option in episode 7, and we're going to get Angelic N in episode 8. And that could be a Super Saiyan version of himself who throws Sin into space. That would be awesome if that's the case. We'll just have to see what happens. But for anyone who hasn't actually seen that particular product from Glitch, that was something that caught my eye when I saw that. Ryan, you also bought it. You can confirm. Absolutely. Import tariff made it twice the value. Oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that, Rubens. I'm sorry that that's the case. Yeah, the tariff, the tariff rates can definitely cause all kinds of problems, and just make it ridiculous. I sent a copy of my book, Notice Me Senpai, to the artist who did the artwork for the book, Nekuru, and Nekuru, she lives over in the Philippines. For a book that costs $5 to purchase, the book only costs $5. It cost me 70, I think it was, to send it to the Philippines. The poor girl could have bought a complete set of all of my books for that. But I sent that as a thank you, and whew, that was an expensive thank you. But gladly paid because, yeah, Nekaru, she deserves it. If you want to see what I mean about the artwork for that, you can check out my book, Notice Me, Send a Pie. It's a short novelette, which is a teenage rom-com about a sweaty, nerdy girl who wants her crush to notice her and misunderstands her otaku friend when her friend's like, "You're like those girls who always like, notice me, senpai." And she hears "send pie." So she decides that she's going to get her crush to notice her by baking him an exceptional pie. And shenanigans ensue. So there we go. Let's see here. Ryan, after the GlitchX hype infusion, I'm probably going to buy more Glitch merch, though it may hurt my wallets. That's the only reason why I'm not buying more, because I gotta take care of my wallet there. I've already bought quite a bit. I don't have a camera for my computer, at least the computer I'm using right here. So I can only describe to you guys that I've got the It Came from Copper 9 movie poster right on up there. I've got the V stained glass window right next to me, along with some of the books that I've got here in my office space, as well as some of the books I just got from the Sanderson Kickstarter, which is awesome. But yeah, all of that stuff costs money. Lots of money. And the wallet's only so big. So yeah, for the rest of you guys and gals watching this right here, you don't have to buy the stuff if you don't want to, if you're unable. Do what is best for you and your own bank account. Don't just drain your money because you want to get some cool merch. Cool merch is awesome, but for the most part, merch does come back. It's not like television reruns were back in the 90s where you wondered if that show or movie would ever come back again. Nowadays, you can get that stuff. These kinds of things aren't going away, especially because Glitch Productions especially knows just how popular these things are. They're going to make sure that we can all get our plushies and other memorabilia. Rubens, you're currently saving up for the V plushie. Oh yeah, I want to get that one as well. A Sin plush. Oh, TK1138, I would love a Sin plush so much. and what I would especially like on that, yeah, you know those holographic cards that change. Of course, you should know them. Have that for her visor, so that way you can have cute Sin and then absolute abomination Sin as you move her head. That'd be awesome. I wanted the V stained glass window and the pendant. I can't buy it yet, so not yet. But when you get the chance, absolutely, if you want it and you're able to afford it, get it, because it's pretty awesome. But yeah, so that's basically been so far my thoughts on some of the big stuff from what we got about the Amazing Digital Circus and about murder drones. There's going to be plenty for people to hash out and talk about for a long time yet to come. But I feel like here's a good position to kind of move on into one of the next big topics I wanted to talk about, which is what Matpat was talking about with with the Amazing Digital Circus. So changing up to just strictly Digital Circus stuff right here. Taking a drink because I feel my voice going, so I won't be able to do this forever. This is why we need to make sure that we can get the rest of the harem out on here, so that way there's other voices and I don't have to talk all the time. Let's see here. Ryan, I need a Jack sweater. Absolutely. You know what? I'll just say this as a little quick aside. The shirts that Glitch produces that they sell definitely catch people's eyes. I've got 2 of the murder drone shirts, and whenever I've gone out in public wearing those, immediately I get at least one person being like, "Dude, that's so awesome." And I'm like, "Yeah, you want to know more about the show?" like they Glitch Productions really knows what they're doing. They're not just giving away awesome shirts and merch, but it's also in a way not quite free advertising, but it's extra advertising for them if you wear their stuff outside, if you wear their merch out in public, people recognize it. It's so eye-grabbing that people just comment on it. Rubens, a Sin plushie would be cool for real. Although imagine if they sold 2 versions, one cute and one that's absolutely terrifying. Oh yeah. I need a Murder Drones jacket as merch. Yes, I would love to. I'd love for them to actually do a jacket. I've got the hoodie, and the hoodie is nice. When it gets cold here, it is absolutely worth having that hoodie. It is very comfortable. But so as I said, changing gears, shifting things on over. I just quickly want to bring up what Matpat talked about in his one of his more recent film theory videos. If you haven't yet seen it, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Where he talks about his different theories on the amazing Digital Circus. And I was so happy that he did not go for the low-hanging fruit of, I can tell you how this series is going to end because I know which short story it's based off of. He did mention the short story in his theory, and he also mentioned the video game, which I didn't know about, of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And how in the video game you can explore this horrifying world that the characters have been put into and try to break free of it within the game. And so he used that to help kind of build up his newest theory, which I think actually has some real merits. And if you've seen it, I would like to hear your guys' thoughts about it in the chat. But he was talking about how everyone who has been sucked here into this simulation, how they are actually still walking around free, which wasn't what I thought. I thought, for instance, that Pomni was stuck at her desk with this headset on because she can feel it. She's grasping at it as she's pulling out her eye and ripping off her mouth. She's trying to get the headset off. But as Matpat points out, when we go to that computer in the real world, there's no one there. And so he postulated that what the headset actually did was that it made a copy of each person's brain and copied their brain and stuffed it into a 3D avatar. So that way the machine or the program can experiment on people and do it in a way that doesn't actually torture the original person with them knowing about it. And that's actually a pretty cool idea right there. That's really sinister. And in a way, people could pass that off as that it's totally ethical because you're actually not hurting anyone because the original person isn't being hurt. And does a disembodied consciousness have human rights? That is fascinating. I don't know if they'll actually go that route with it within the show, if that's even really happening right there. But that was, I thought, like actually a really good theory right there from Matpat. TK1138, I just assumed that she was physically sucked into the game. Yeah, that was my thought. And I still kind of like that idea more, that she is physically stuck in the game in some kind of way and can feel what's happened to her body. Like, that's in and of itself is massive torture. Rubens, I didn't see it yet, but the pilot in the pilot there was a scene where Pomni saw a computer with a chair and going crazy. So maybe it's her desktop. That's what I think. And Matpat also toyed around with the idea that CNA is the company that Pomni works for, and I kind of agree with that right there. He threw out also the theory about Cain and Abel. And I'll just be honest, I still don't understand why people subscribe to this idea of Cain and Abel. Of course, Cain having killed Abel. And if we take that actually down the proper theological path, then what that means is that Cain was cursed with immortality as torture by God because you were the first person to commit murder. And so now you will be rightfully punished for what you have done. And so you have Cain separated from the rest of humanity, immortal, tortured. Life sucks, and there's a lot of really weird apocryphal stories about what's happened to Cain. So like I can imagine why that's an interesting idea to go down, especially when there's a character named Cain in the show, and that this company that seems to have made this whole program, made the Digital Circus, is called CNA. Could this be Cain and Abel? It's interesting speculation, but I don't see the connection for it. I don't see the idea really of a god who's there to punish Cain, especially because in this case Cain is the wrangler, is the administrator to the entire program that these humans are stuck in. And as Gooseworks has reiterated again and again and again, Cain is not necessarily a bad guy, and he definitely wouldn't see himself as the villain. He believes firmly that according to his programming, he's doing the right thing by helping out these humans, by trying to prevent them from going insane and snapping and abstracting within the Digital Circus. So he's doing what he believes is the right thing, but because he doesn't understand humanity and how they work, a lot of his games and programs end up torturing the humans who are stuck within the Digital Circus. And that's an interesting thing in and of itself, which doesn't lend itself to the story of Cain and Abel really, really well. So while it's a theory that Matpat has subscribed to, and it's one that I know a lot of people like, there's just nothing really there as far as I can see that really supports making that connection between the Amazing Digital Circus and the biblical story of Cain and Abel. So if you guys have any thoughts, I'd like to see them in the chat, and it'll give me a chance to take another swig of water right here. But yeah, there we are. Say, Matpat did a good video as usual. Interesting theory. It'll be interesting to see how people take it. I'll just say this: I find it really annoying when people overreact to his theories. I had someone comment months ago on a video that I did, where they were so upset with me for even just mentioning that within Deltarune that the gameplay plays out a little bit like D&D within the first chapter, and they're like, "How dare you? How dare you share that theory that was cooked up by Matpat and has destroyed so many lives? And don't you know that people have died because of this?" I'm like, whoa, please chill. First of all, I have never heard any of that stuff before about people being hurt by his theories, and I don't understand how you could be hurt by a theory about D&D. If you take it that seriously, please take a step back, come back to reality, and enjoy it with the rest of us. Deltarune is just a game. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to write fan fiction for, to do fan art, and we're all desperately waiting for the next chapter. But please do not take it too seriously. So yes, I do like his theories. I really do like Matpat's theories. And Rubens, I feel like it's an exaggerated thing, but I guess many people took this from the Antichrist theory for sin, for murder drones. But for the Amazing Digital Circus, it seems weird. And yeah, and I did get that. I did also see some of the discussions around Sin being an Antichrist character. I think it's just way more accurate to assume that she's a Lovecraftian kind of villain. People were hurt by Matt's Deltarune theories. That's what this one person claimed. I've not seen any evidence for that, and I feel like that's just coming from people who have their own pet theories about something like Deltarune that they're very wedded to, that they felt affronted by someone else saying something that went against their theory, which there are plenty of people who get really upset when anyone contradicts something that they really like. And I mean, I've been accused for that when it came to the Rings of Power, because I went off on that show. And at least as much as I hated the Rings of Power, I did try to give it as much grace as I could. And if you watched any of my reviews or didn't but want to see them, you'll see how I do try to give them the benefit of the doubt, looking at the Rings of Power as its own individual show and story, completely disconnected from the Lord of the Rings in any kind of way, and how it actually does on its own. And yeah, and so if I completely divorce myself from the Rings of Power, there are some things that are pretty nice about the show. But as a Lord of the Rings extension, oh boy, that thing is an abomination from beginning to end. Guys, help me! My Deltarune theory is stabbing me. Yeah, yeah. Enough of that. Yeah, theories can hurt feelings, but it can't hurt you physically. You're absolutely right, Hafiz. And I mean that comes down as well to you. I think one of the best advice that I've ever heard, and I've definitely tried to apply in my own life, is that you don't have to be offended by someone else. Like a lot of offensive things happen around us and to us every day. How we react to them is how you build your character, how you build respect for others and for yourself, because that's very important. It's very healthy. And so you can choose to not be offended. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but you can choose how you react to the stuff that offends and annoys you and even seeks to hurt you. And if you can rise above that, then you rob individuals of their ability to do that kind of mental damage to you. And most of the time, people do things without even wanting to offend you. It's usually accidental. And so if you give those people the grace and you respect yourself and don't rise to what you perceive to be bait, you usually end up making way more friends and really making good connections with people. Life lessons and life insights from Lars. Uh, the Gaster implications are going to give me a heart attack. Yeah, I love making people upset whenever I bring up Gaster. It's like, come on, guys. He's in the game in some kind of form. He's going to be there. Could he be a big deal? Maybe not. Probably not. Because Toby Fox is going to troll. It's what he does. But Gaster's in the game. Let's just accept it. Drown yourself in the digital lake. Oh my gosh. Yes. That line right there, drown yourself in the digital lake, I think is him realizing that people have tried to somehow escape the digital circus by doing self-harm. And it's just like, yeah, it's not really going to do anything to you because me as the game master, I'm going to save you. So if someone's being stupid and you brush them off, they start to feel stupid too. That's how you stop an argument before it starts. Absolutely. I mean, there's times where you have to stand up for yourself and for other people and stand for what you believe is right. But that can be done without being confrontational. Again, showing respect. A lot of my students would tell me that a lot of my students would tell me that they wouldn't be respectful to their teachers or to their fellow students until respect was given to them. And to which my response was, that will never work, because you only are respected in as much as you give respect. I mean, how many powerful leaders have there been there in the world who their servants or their followers or their citizens really actually didn't love them? They weren't loyal in the end, or they didn't really respect them. And that was because the leader wasn't showing that kind of respect to them. If you want respect in life, you have to give that respect, and then that respect is reciprocated. And you can definitely stop arguments by being respectful towards other people and choosing to not be offended and blow a gasket when you hear or see something that you don't agree with. Yeah, making mistakes is human. Absolutely, Hafiz. It's okay to make mistakes. Just you learn from them, you move on. Some mistakes, some choices will unfortunately haunt you for many, many years and make you cringe at the memory of it. That just happens to all of us, but you can continue to become a better person. Don't worry, Kane hit a TV with an invisibility symbol from Sonic. All right. But yeah, so I mean, those are my thoughts right there about Matpat's theories. Thank you guys for sharing your own right there. Lastly, before I wrap up right here, I have right here. I quickly want to read this from ISO. I have a saying: respect is mutual. That means if one person does not respect another, the other person won't respect him. Yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes. You can still respect someone who doesn't respect you, but then that respect doesn't mean a whole lot. Respect has to be mutual in order for that relationship to be what it can be. whatever that relationship be, from friendship to business partners, from someone who works in a lower position to romance, whatever it be. Respect does have to be mutual for it to be the best it can be. But moving on to the last thing that I want to talk about, as strange as it might seem, because it's completely out of the wheelhouse of everything else that we've been talking about right here, I do want to bring up Goblin Slayer. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have watched this anime, either the first season or the second season. I think it's really interesting how things have changed in the cultural landscape. When the first season premiered, oh my gosh, if you even talked about Goblin Slayer, you were the worst. You promoted violence against women and all this other stuff. Yes, this is a story that has some really heavy stuff to it. What I tell people is this: if you want to watch Goblin Slayer, just skip the first episode, unless you have the stomach to watch some really brutal stuff. Because it has a hard R rating in the first episode. If you can stomach that, go ahead, watch the first episode. If that's something you don't want to put yourself through, you can enjoy the entirety of Goblin Slayer by starting at episode 2 and moving on. But the reason why I want to bring this up is because for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think it's something that still should actually remain in the cultural conversation, because people wrote it off as just being this absolutely awful story. Then for those people who actually went through it, they found, especially if they like D&D, that it's a show that's very respectful to the game of D&D, with some interesting characters, and with its main lead really working in a way that should be discussed if it's the right way to go to overcome his trauma. Is he actually harming himself? Is he being a hero by doing what he does? What's exactly going on here? And what I really like about the second season is that the second season, if you've decided to have that conversation, begins to answer that question by showing how Goblin Slayer has finally managed to make some genuine relationships beyond just his party and the two people that he returns home to. That he is someone who is growing as an individual in many different kinds of ways. And for the first time since the tragedy of losing his sister when he was just a kid, he's finally learning what it is like to be a human actually again. And in the 4th episode of season 2, there's a moment where you get to hear Goblin Slayer genuinely laugh. And it's just like, whoa, it's such a humanizing moment. And it's a great emotional payoff for a story that really takes its time to just sink you into a very dark, perverse world of D&D. I saw Until the Last Man. I think I can take anything, maybe. Let's see here. Huffy, I do endorse against Goblin and Milex. Hafiz, does that mean that you that you say, yeah, you can skip Goblin Slayer, or are you saying that you're for Goblin Slayer? I just want to know right there. Either way is fine by me. If someone doesn't want to watch Goblin Slayer or read it, that's absolutely fine. It's definitely not a must see. And I think it's okay to bring up those kinds of stories. That there are those stories where you can say, this is there for you to enjoy if you wish to enjoy it, but you actually don't have to. And that's kind of an odd that's kind of an odd recommendation to give, but I think that's an honest one, because when you hear from someone, you absolutely must read this or you absolutely must watch it, and you know it's going to be an investment on your part, there's some expectation with that. We've actually begun to learn more from psychology that people, for whatever, that people feel like that's oh crud, my brain suddenly switched to German. Verpflichtung. Es ist eine Verpflichtung, dass ich sowas lesen oder anschauen muss. That it is, man, this is weird. I hate it when this happens. this is one of the, for all of you who are bilingual, you probably can sympathize with this, when your brain suddenly switches over to another language and you're like, why? Germany jump scare. Yep. I am half German. I can speak German, and so every now and then my German takes over. Crud. Oh well. That you are basically people, if they there's a thought these days that if someone gives you a recommendation and you say that you will do it, that now you're committed to doing it. And so people do their absolute best to not be committed to watch or read or listen to the things that are heavily recommended to them. And I've done this. I know many other people have done that. Some of my closest friends, like I tell them, like, you really, really got to watch this. It's so good. You'll love it. And then they won't watch it for like a year. And then they'll watch it later and be like, oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'm like, yeah, it absolutely was. Why did it take you a year? And they're like, well, because I was afraid. I was afraid of committing myself, and then that it wouldn't live up to expectations. So I think it's okay to recommend something, for instance, like Goblin Slayer, where you're like, this is a more mature story. It's very brutal. It's got dark themes to it. But if you're willing to give it the chance, you are going to enjoy a very good dark fantasy story. And if you like D&D, there's a lot of things that you're going to see that you will enjoy. But if you're not into D&D and if you're not into dark fantasy, then this isn't a story for you. And I feel like if you can recommend stuff with that kind of an approach, being considerate of what people may like or might not like, that then someone will be far more inclined to actually take up your recommendation. Let's see here. So I didn't watch Goblin Slayer yet, but I did watch the abridged version. Oh boy, I think you'll find it a little bit more entertaining when you actually seen the real thing, and then you can compare it to the abridged. Rubens, this happens when I speak with American friends out of nowhere, especially when I'm in tense games. I start screaming in Portuguese. They follow me in it too. Yeah, no, I get that. If I get really worked up sometimes at a game, I will also start saying stuff in German. Or if I get really frustrated, like whenever I'm building something and I get really frustrated, I will start cursing in German. which actually, funny thing, most Germans will not curse in their native tongue. They use American curse words because in the German language, the words that they use are considered weak. The Germans rank the power of their words in a very interesting way. And so, yeah, most Germans will actually not curse in their own language. They'll curse in English. So it's actually kind of funny then that I'm cursing in German when I'm frustrated on a project, because to everyone else it sounds really fierce, but to me, I know I'm just being silly. Ryan Phillips, that you got into Hellsing Ultimate by first watching the abridged version. Okay, that's awesome. I love that. Both are excellent. Yeah, no, there's some great abridged versions. I love Little Karibo's dedication to Yu-Gi-Oh. That those things have been on point. And as one of those guys who has watched every episode of the original Yu-Gi-Oh series, holy cow. That show in retrospect is so dumb. It's fun. It's dumb fun. And I love that Little Karibo is able to pull out all of that dumb fun and and just crucify it in the most dry way possible. Rubens, in Portuguese, it's the contrary. We feel like English curse words are soft, while in Portuguese we do basically. I am horrible with this. I'm horrible with pronunciation, so I'm going to say filo da, which is for some reason extremely loud. All right. Now, my oldest brother-in-law speaks Portuguese. I'll have to ask. I'll have to pick his brain on that and get his perspective as an outsider. What he thought of learning curse words in Portuguese. Though, to be fair, he's such a kind soul. I think that cursing in any language is like beyond him. Despite the fact that he can speak Spanish and Portuguese fluently, and he knows a fair amount of French. How you know French and don't know how to curse, I don't know. But yeah, so coming back to it right here, Goblin Slayer. Uh, one of the things that I will say to Goblin Slayer season 2 is that they definitely learned from the criticism, and this is something that as writers we need to learn from. You need to learn how to take criticism and to apply it to your stories. So while the manga has been ongoing, the light novels are even further along than the anime is. The anime creators learned from the criticisms that they'd gotten. For one, no one liked CGI'd Goblin Slayer. They did not like seeing the main character as a weird CGI robot zombie, while everyone else was was given 2D animation. And so it looks good. Like, it's nice to see Goblin Slayer now fully 2D animated. And in many weird ways, it actually makes him now feel like a more relatable character. And they also did get the point that the first season was incredibly over the top gory. The second season still has got gore, but it's nowhere near as intense as the first season. And there's definitely something to be said about not letting your story become gratuitous. There are some stories that do deserve to be way more mature, way more gratuitous in their violence and their content and stuff like that. But not all stories need to be that way. There's a fallacy where a lot of fantasy authors, especially a lot of mature fantasy authors, felt that they needed to replicate George R. R. Martin's The Game of Thrones series or A Song of Ice and Fire. And so they would throw in as much sex, as much cursing, as much violence as they possibly could. But those stories then just became weighed down by just the sheer magnitude of violence, of sexual content, and the absurd way that these characters were cursing. It just read so unnaturally that it just didn't work. And so for Goblin Slayer, again, they heard the criticisms of what people had to say about the character portrayals and the way that the action and the violence are portrayed, and they altered it to make it more palatable to a wider audience. And while I'm someone who I don't mind a more mature story, I felt like it really did a good job in making the series now feel way more accessible to a larger audience, but without losing its heart and soul, what the story is still about. And I still clearly see that in the show. And so I just wanted to bring that up as as a living example right now, which if you want to see what I mean, you can watch Goblin Slayer if you wish and see how things have changed from season 1 to season 2. And you can then form an opinion for yourself of what they did by taking on that criticism has actually helped the series overall. I think it has. And again, that's something that as creators, we need to learn that. We need to learn how we can receive criticism and then also utilize that criticism in order to make our stories better. So let's see here. Coming over here, Hafiz, I use both Malay and English curse words. Yep, when you know multiple languages. I know French swear words, but I'm better at saying English ones. I try to hold back though. And Ruben's, creators taking criticism in the 2020s? Now, that's new and cool. Yes, it is. And it shows immense maturity on the level of creators when they can actually do that. I think one of the biggest examples would be the Sonic movie, the first one. And one of my sisters, she is convinced that it was a plot from the beginning, that they actually had intended to make people angry, to then win them over by promising to give them the real Sonic and not the photorealistic horror nightmare show that they gave in the very first trailer. If you look at the actual release budgets for the Sonic franchise, you'll realize that no, they actually did it first intend to give us the photorealistic horror show that was the OG Sonic, and that they learned from fan feedback and fan anger, and that they did shell out the extra $50 million to fix the movie and pushing it back a couple of months to make it happen. And it worked, and it was well received, and it got a sequel, and the franchise is doing well. So I'm excited to see what they do with the third one. I really, really hope that Jim Carrey comes out of retirement to reprise his role as Dr. Eggman, because he did such a good job as Robotnik / Eggman. Um, Sonic would be in the horror category on Netflix if it was the first model for real. Absolutely. Oh, that's such a it on a visceral level. It's so repellent. Yeah, Sonic movie is really good, and you're right, Hafiz, and it's good thanks to the criticism. Criticism definitely goes a long way in helping creators improve upon their craft. And I would love to be a fly on the wall. This is kind of taking us back to Glitch from earlier, but I would love to be a fly on the wall for the conversations that would be had between the Glitch producers and Liam and Gooseworks to see what kind of feedback that they got. We did actually get a little bit of that. There was a moment, I don't know if they meant to expose this during the interview with Gooseworks, but they revealed that they had to explain to her that she needed to communicate with everyone, that her job was now to take charge, to communicate, to give orders, and that she needed to come out of her shell. And that is the kind of feedback that you need to get from the producers or the editors who oversee the general project. Even though you're the creative leading the project, you do need to have some sense of oversight in order to help you to become better. My best, the book that I think is my best, is Bleed, Steam, and Steel. And that's in part because I had an editor for that book. She sat down with me. We talked things over. She gave me her feedback. She even told me what she didn't like about the book, which was good to hear. And I had to either defend my stance on certain parts or I had to change what needed to be changed in order to make the book better grammatically, narratively, and also for people's taste, because something that you enjoy might not work well with others. And it isn't your duty necessarily to make everyone love your stories, but you do need to make sure that your stories are either accessible to a general audience or that they are perfectly trimmed and catering to a specific audience. If you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to connect. And that's one of the reasons why you need criticism and you need feedback. That's right here. All I want to see is the song Eggman play in the third movie. It'd be so epic. Yeah. Let's see here. I've been thinking about the cosmic horror concepts for my books. Ooh, cosmic horror. If you're going to do anything cosmic horror, which I am planning a cosmic horror story of my own, definitely make sure that you find other books and other creators who deal with cosmic horror and get their input. Figure out their style, figure out what cosmic horror truly is, because there's a lot of things that people talk about being cosmic, but cosmic horror is actually a subgenre of horror that is a little tricky to put your finger on, because it's not just about the big monsters and this blows your brains, but cosmic horror is ultimately at a level of there's something that we just cannot understand. And part of the horror, and in fact, actually kind of the most writing parts of the said horror, is that this is an entity or a situation that we can't ever fully process. And because we can't fully process it, because we can't fully understand it, you are always in danger, and it's always pushing you to the brink of either your physical or your mental safety. And so that in and of itself is cosmic horror. Most horror stories do in some kind of way create lore or rules that you can come to understand. Once you understand those, you can either survive the story or die in the best way possible, like in the movie The Woman in Black. But within cosmic horror, you just never know. You can get answers, but you're never going to get all the answers. And so that's an important element if you are going to write cosmic horror. And that's something that for someone like me who loves to dive in deep and have all the answers, that is going to be difficult for me to write. Hafiz asks, does anyone play Monster Hunter here? I do not. I don't know if anyone else does. I have to limit my video game playing just because I'm always working on so many other things. I'm still trying to make my way through Elden Ring, even though I'm playing just a little bit of Baldur's Gate there on the side. But I absolutely have to make sure that I have an open window to play anything, because otherwise my life is so consumed with work and helping my family out. Yeah, so there we are. Whew. 2 hours. Granted, about 2 of those minutes were mute for you guys while I was trying to figure it on out. But hey, we are here. Guys and gals, thank you so much for being here with me for this, for hearing, listening to me ramble, for participating. It's been awesome. I will answer the last couple things right here, and then I will wrap up and get myself dinner. Let's see here. For myself, my story revolves around a space exploration team of humans that discovers a being inside of an ever-expanding black hole that consumes everything. Now, let's see, I like that premise. I think you can have a lot of fun with that. In Elden Ring, which quest line are you doing? I am right now trying to defeat Melania. That is right now my quest. I have pretty much done everything else. I am in the end game. I only have a couple of bosses left before I fight the Elden creature itself. So yeah, that's where I'm right now at. So close to the end. Let's see here. Rubens, I was checking an American shop. Guitars cost a lot of money. Hope that you're able to find one for a good price within your budget. And no worries about the grammar. Like, I understand. I was there with German, messing up grammar and writing all the time. It took me a little while, so I absolutely understand. I'm not going to write on anyone for their bad grammar, unless they are someone who's writing and who's trying to write an excellent book, and they are a native speaker of English and their grammar sucks. Then I will tear into their grammar. Stories are going to be an analogy, Tevin. All right, I look forward to reading them. It was a fun live stream. Glad to have joined in. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for being here and to talk about your favorite shows and stories. And yeah, thank you, Iso, for that as well. I would love to do other live streams in the future. I'm not going to give any promises about when the next one will be or for how long. I will have to talk about that with the rest of the harem and see what we can do. It looks like StreamYard worked out pretty well for this, so we'll experiment with this again. The next one will probably be with me and Scott, since we're the most open in the group as far as our schedules go. 2 hours well spent. Oh, going back to my manga thingies. Hey, Hafiz, good luck. Thank you so much for being here with y'all. And guys, for my little outro right here. Thank you so much for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Tschüss.